So there's this small indie film you probably haven't heard of. It's called Citizen Kane. It's a small flick from the 40s, debut film of Orson Welles, and it's regarded as good or maybe a little bit outdated. Of course I'm joking. 1941 Citizen Kane has been regarded for the better part of a century as maybe the greatest American production of all time. But I've never seen it. It just hasn't been on my list. Ever. I don't like old films, and by old films I don't mean like 90s films. I mean black and white films. I've seen Jaws countless times. That's over 50 years old now. Godfather is better than Jaws, and that's even older. And even then I can be a little bit hypocritical. A Wonderful Life is the best Christmas film. That's black and white. It only came out a few years after Citizen Kane. So why did I put off watching it so long? Well, there's always been stuff above it on my list. If I watch Just a Wonderful Life, it's because it's Christmas. If I watch Your Name, it's because I want to watch something that'll make me feel safe. If I want to watch It's Such a Beautiful Day, it's because I need serious help. I don't think I can watch that a second time. So before I actually give you my opinions on the classic that I finally watched, let me give you all a quick recap on the film. Starring the director Orson Welles as Charles Foster Kane, Citizen Kane follows shortly after his death, his final words being the now iconic Rosebud. The main narrative of the movie focuses on Jerry Thompson, who is investigating the meaning of the brief final word. Through the investigation he talks to Jedediah Leland, a former friend of Kane's, Susan Alexander, one of his ex-wives, and his personal business manager, Mr. Bernstein. The film goes between the present, as Thompson repeatedly gets no answers for the meaning of Rosebud, as well as the past, from Kane being taken away from his parents after a gold deposit was found on their property, and they entrust a man named Thatcher to not only set up finances for the young Kane, but to take guardianship of him, all the way to his nasty attempts at becoming governor of California, ending in a scandal. That is the general plot, and it may not sound great. That's how a lot of people nowadays feel. If you look on Letterboxd, it has a 4.2 out of 5 rating, just barely missing out on the top 250. It holds a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, and an 8.3 on IMDb. Wait, 8.3? That seems really low. But yeah, sure, the most common rating is still a 10 out of 10. What I'm trying to say is, since its release 84 years ago, it has gained a reputation as film fans' favourite film, alongside The Godfather, Pulp Fiction, and Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties. Yet there's an ever-growing number of people, especially film fans, stating that they find it overrated, boring, or even bad. It is a classic that's filled with cliches you have seen before, such as the iconic opening scene, the spinning newspaper. You've seen that, you've seen it in loads of films. If you watch Citizen Kane, you'll recognise that, and you don't realise Citizen Kane is the reason other films also do that. It's the leader of the pack. So today I have 3 questions I want to ask. Is it outdated? Is it good? And what did Rosebud mean? As I said, Citizen Kane is 84 years old. I don't know anyone in real life older than Citizen Kane. Joe Biden is younger than Citizen Kane. It isn't the oldest film I've ever watched. The proper answer for that is 1 Week by Buster Keaton. Great, by the way. But I rarely watch films this ancient. For a few years now, I've classified films into 2 sections. Original cinema and modern cinema. And this has nothing to do with pre or new Hollywood. It's a simple question. Pre or post Jaws? Jaws is not my favourite film. Hasn't been for a while. But I grew up with it. I loved sharks when I was a kid, so naturally I got into the film. And then I started to split films into pre and post Jaws. Jaws is old but doesn't feel ancient. Anything before Jaws can be amazing. I'm not saying it can't. The Godfather is better than Jaws, as I've already said. But prior to Jaws, to me, feels like old cinema. And all that to say that, yes, it's outdated. It's all black and white, some shots are stupidly obviously models, and yet, I'd be a bit annoyed if they remade it. Because it is right out of its time. Its age adds to it. It's 84 years old, it's 2 hours long, and I never found myself longing for it to end. And don't do what I did. Don't refuse to watch Citizen Kane because of its age. Because of the reputation it has gathered now. Be your own judge. If you don't like films in black and white, I get that. It's a lot more visibly pleasing to watch films with bright, stunning colours. Almost any day I'd prefer to watch The Grand Budapest Hotel or The Holdovers, simply due to the cinematography and those films' brilliant use of colour. And yet Citizen Kane had me in awe with the shots. Whether it was the clips I'd seen before but never knew where from, or the shots inside a Xanadu, however the hell you pronounce that, which is more like a mental asylum than an opera house. This film is certainly not held back by the lack of colour or the 40s aesthetic.
What is his name? What is his name?
Yes, of course Citizen Kane is good. You're probably expecting me to say that because I'm a film buff. It's the common belief. And that's for good reason. With the rise in people online saying it's bad or boring, I didn't have high expectations. It's never good to go into a film expecting it to not resonate with you. And it's even worse when that film is Citizen bloody Kane. And yet, the entire time, engrossed. Everything was amazing. The film opens with such an iconic scene showing the death of Charles Kane before immediately going into a 12-minute newsreel over his life and... Wait, is that Adolf Hitler? What is he doing here? No, but seriously, the film could have stayed in the newsreel format for the entire 2 hours and I think I would have enjoyed it. Because Orson Welles came to direct this movie, his first movie, with a level of confidence that I would have trusted any direction he went down. And what he did do is amazing. He tells a story of riches blinding a man's nature. One aspect that immediately grasped my attention, and one of my favourite parts of the entire film, was his promise to the people. In Citizen Kane, Charles decides he wants to run a newspaper, The Inquirer. He thinks it'll be fun. In his first press published, on the front cover, he places a promise that he will share the news honestly, his declaration of principles. Then later on we see him run for governor. Once he loses the race, he calls fraud. Never seen that before.
If you could give Charles Foster Kane advice, what would you say to him?
Get yourself a different woman.
After he signed the declaration and copied it for the paper, his friend, his ally, Leland, asks to keep the original declaration in assumption that one day it might be worth something.
It might turn out to be something pretty important.
So in the back half of this movie, after Kane fired Leland for sharing his honest opinion in the paper, Leland mails the Declaration of Principles to Kane, who upon seeing it remarks about being an antique.
An antique.
Before immediately ripping it to shreds, a clear metaphor for how Kane had changed throughout the film. Citizen Kane is never going to be my favourite film. Honestly, it wasn't even the best film I watched that day.
Amy Winehouse!
I broke down watching the documentary Amy, but if you left a comment telling me that you thought Citizen Kane was the greatest film ever made, I couldn't argue with you. I never could. It's a 5-star film. It's a good feeling when I'm worried that I've been giving out too many 5-star ratings recently. This does also mean that it's the oldest film I've ever given 5 stars to. So what did Rosebud mean? If you've seen Citizen Kane, really should by the way, then you can already answer this question. Rosebud is the main goal of the film, for Thompson to find out why it was his final word and what it means. And really I only want to talk about this because of the ending. An ending can make or break a film, just like a twist. My favourite film of all time, Your Name, ends with a title drop. A happy and wholesome way to close a warm feeling film.
Can I ask you your name?
Inglourious Bastard ends with...
I think this just might be my masterpiece.
Which is correct, and is so iconic because it comes at the end of a perfect film. Potentially my favourite film ending of all time is Inception. Maybe one day I'll make a video on it. But to sum it up, the spinning top continues to spin. That might not sound amazing, but in context of the film, it is. Films always work due to their context. Any decision in a film can be great if it's justified. Citizen Kane's ending is iconic because of the reveal, because of the meaning behind it. Because Thompson, who spends the whole movie looking for the answer, never receives it. Only the audience does. So let's rewind to the childhood of Charles Kane. As I previously stated, he was taken away from his biological parents during a snowstorm. Charles was outside playing with his shed, unaware about how his life was about to change. His parents were inside talking to Mr. Thatcher about setting up a fund for their son, and Thatcher becoming his guardian. Once the deal is done, Thatcher takes Kane away after a bit of a struggle. So, what is Rosebud? How is this connected to it? Well, in the final scene of the movie, as Kane's opera house, Xanadu, how am I meant to pronounce that, is being emptied out, with the trash being burnt and the valuables being sold, Thompson, accepting not knowing the truth, leaves content. And we see the rubbish, the piles of rubbish, stuff Kane had collected through his life that now had no meaning behind it. Then we see the fireplace, the stuff being burnt in it. And right there, thrown in by the workers, is the sled, Rosebud. The memory of his family, the memory of innocence, the last time he was truly happy, thrown into a fire, mistaken as trash. Citizen Kane has gained this reputation for a good reason. It's heartfelt, brilliantly directed, tells a great character arc, and just maybe has the best ending in cinematic history. Thanks for watching.